and everything, and so I was like, "Who's the man now?" I'm standing up on this tree, like talking to the tree, like I needed drugs this whole time. Who's the man now? You know, I'm still standing. You're laying on the ground. You know, even laying on the ground, I didn't even scratch the surface of how that tree was planted. Yeah, I cut it off. I'm telling you right now, we dropped that bad boy. It was on the ground. You know, I didn't even begin to take the roots out. Do you know what happens in a lot of your lives? Satan comes and he hacks on you. And he hacks on you. And sometimes you even fall down. And Satan is standing on your life going, "Who's the man now?" And you're laying on the ground. But you know what? That tree got the final laugh. Because you know what? You go out to my house right now. You know what's in the backyard? A stump. That tree, man, I cut it down. It's been burnt for 15, 20 years now. Those roots are still there. I never got rid of that tree. And you could go right now in the backyard, very close to where the well house used to sit, after I smashed it. And you will find a stump, big around, you can probably sit on it. You know what's going to remain? Is the roots. So let me ask you a question. If you have to examine your root system, what have you really planted? What's really under the surface of your life that's holding you stable? See, some of you are depending on your parents' religion. You're depending on your parents' spirituality. You got no roots for yourself. And let me tell you what, Satan's got out the chainsaw. And you know when Satan's favorite time to cut down people is? When they're teenagers. You know, if he can cut you down now, you'll do nothing for Christ the rest of your life. If he could come in and get you chopped off and lay it on the ground on your back, he will think he won everything. So let me ask you, where are your roots spiritually? You say, "Well, David, I'm a brand new Christian." Then that's a bigger reason for you to put in roots. "Well, I've been saved since I was 5 years old, man. I asked Jesus into my heart at Vacation Bible School when I was 2. Where are your roots? Some of you know how to lead people to Christ, but when you look at your own life, spiritually, you have no roots. You have not put yourself down. You have not put yourself firmly planted so that when Satan, and let me tell you, it's not if Satan, it's when Satan comes into your life. Because I guarantee you Satan was there. And if you haven't had Satan beat up on you, try to chop you down, just hold on, it's coming. So what's your roots like? Some of you haven't taken the first step of just getting baptized. That's telling the world what happened in your heart. It does nothing to get you in or out of heaven. But it tells the world, "I'm a Christian." You haven't even taken the first step. So how's your root system today? Are you still the little mushroom that just sprouted out that's about to get whacked? Or are you a strong oak tree that's got your root systems planted? I want to give you another characteristic of it. You know what else I know about oak trees? You know, it's really funny too. If you drive down the road, you see the weirdest thing about trees. They always grow straight towards the sun, even if that makes them crooked in the world. Have you noticed that? If you're driving down the road and you see this tree that's pointed like this right at the sun, it's grown out of the side of a hill and it's pointed straight at the sun. It's always reaching higher and higher for the sun, even if that means the rest of the world looks at it like, "You're crooked." You know what we need spiritually? We need to reach for what's higher, even when the world thinks that's crooked. You know, here's what most of us do, me included sometimes. I want to reach for what everybody else is reaching for. I want to reach the same direction that everybody else is reaching. My generation's all driving Lexus, guess what I'm reaching for? A Lexus. Your generation's all reaching for college, so guess what you're reaching for? College. Is there anything wrong with college or a Lexus? No. But when we quit reaching for what's higher from God to reach to what the world says, let me tell you, we get ourselves in trouble. An oak tree always reaches for something higher. Let me ask you a question. Don't answer out loud or burp out loud.
Sorry.
What's the last thing you reached for that was higher than you? Do you know why the world looks at Christians sometimes and thinks, "What do I want that for?" Because we don't reach higher when it comes to the relationships with our parents. We don't reach higher when it comes to how we talk. vocabulary in the halls of Cabell Midlands as Christians is exactly the same as the world's vocabulary, with colorful metaphors. Now, it's getting painful now. The way we handle our girlfriends and boyfriends aren't any different than the way the world handles them. Because we're not reaching higher. Do you know what? If it's Christian, it ought to be better. If it's Christian, it ought to be excellent. The world ought to look at us and say, that's what I want to be. The problem is we have compromised so much that we now look, act, talk just like everybody else. And then we wonder why when we tell our friends, you need to accept Jesus, they're like, what for? But when's the last time the world looked at you and said, man, that's somebody that's reaching higher? When's the last time on the soccer field, on the basketball floor, on the football field, on the cheerleading sideline, marching in the band, that they looked at you and said, man, I want what they have. I don't know what it is, but I want it. I submit to you that when we act like an oak tree, we reach for something higher, the world will look at us and want to reach for it too. Winston Churchill said, all that's required for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. When's the last time somebody in your school looked at you and said, man, they're living on a level higher than me. I don't know what it is, but it's higher than me. Do you know how much security an oak tree provides? Let's just think for 1 minute what an oak tree provides. First of all, it converts carbon dioxide into oxygen, of which, if we don't have, we die. Think of all the termites that live in this tree. It's home. Think of all the birds that make nests, that raise their young. Think of everything this tree provides as security for others. Now let me ask you something. What security are you providing for others? Do you realize that when you stand as an oak tree in their lives spiritually, that they will look to you and say, man, that's security. What kind of security? For eternity? Do you realize that you have the answer for their eternal problem? What's their eternal problem? They're going to hell. So, Lord, that's not politically correct. You said my friends are going to hell. They're going straight to hell, and you're watching them. You're their security. How shall they hear except somebody tell them? Now, we've always taken that verse and said, oh, that's for preachers. No, it's not. You're the only preacher some people will ever listen to. They're not going to come and listen to this freak. They're not going to come to church and say, man, that weirdo, I don't like anything he said. If they do come, they'll be like, wow, he's weird. Let me tell you who's preaching in their lives. You. How shall they hear? You are their security for the future. Let me tell you something, and it is a sad commentary on my generation. And I've heard it from every generation before me, and one day somebody in this room is going to stand up and say the same thing. I had a friend that I never told about Christ, and they died. And I don't know if they ever asked Christ in their heart. Every generation before me has said it. And now I'm saying it. And if you won't be security for somebody's future, you're going to say it. Security for their future. Security for their now. Do you understand there's people sitting in this room right now? Right now. This is the darkest hour of their soul. They have lived the most horrible week of their lives. You know that verse? Remember the verse? That His Word provides hope. Guess who delivers the hope? You. You do. You are their security. When their lives are a mess, they come to you and say, what am I going to do? Litmus test. When's the last time somebody's life was a mess and they came to you and said, man, I saw you reaching higher. What am I supposed to do about this? When's the last time somebody came to you and they recognized you as the oak tree? Said, David, nobody's ever come to me. Then I submit you're not an oak tree. You're just a mushroom. Let me tell you something. When people are hurt,